Hello and welcome to another video and podcast from Fantasy Football Scout. My name is Tom and today I'm joined by Chris to react to some more price reveals that we've had today, including the much anticipated Son Heung-min. How are you doing, Chris?
I'm a little bit bedraggled, so I'm sorry, folks. Sorry, viewers. Obviously, podcast listeners won't be able to see that, but yeah, I've been a bit of a stressful day. There's a lot going on at the moment, and yeah, you can see it. You can see the lack of sleep. Apologies for not shaving. It's not what I normally do, but I'm excited though. I'm bedraggled but excited. That's what I'm like.
Someone did comment you need some sleep because you were yawning a bit and on the last video. And someone also commented that I look like Mark Bosnich, which I had to Google, but anyway.
Oh, you're such a child. God, you know Mark Bosnich when we were in Gelsenkirchen watching Italy Spain, Jules Laurent, who we were trying to lambast and Sam didn't want to talk to, he was interviewing Mark Bosnich.
Oh, there you go. Let's see, I didn't recognise him at all.
Yeah, I didn't know that
Anyway,
you either.
right, let's get into it. Before we start, I'll just shout out the Fantasy Football Scout members area, which is 40% off. FPL is coming soon. It's getting closer. Surely we've had enough price reveals by now. But yeah, this got everything you need for the preseason and beyond, including our famous Minix tracker, which has already started because we've had some friendlies. Man United have played their first friendly. Wolves have as well. So that is exciting. And Chris, we've also got a new feature that's coming this year that we'll be announcing hopefully later today. So by the time you're watching this, you may well know what it is. But Chris, do you want to explain a little bit?
So, and we've had the best. We've had the original members area, and you can go in there. You can dive in the data, and you can kind of sort it and create tables, and you see all the stats, and obviously rate my teams based on that as well. So we've got that, and that's going to be there again, of course. But we've got something else. We have we have the bomb. We're adding a whole new range of stats data. We are bringing stats bomb into the members area as well. But we're bringing a whole new data set in. It's going to be we're going to bring in the XG. StatsBomb has the best XG in the world. It's used by those professional football clubs, and there's a lot of other stuff in there about pressing. There's visualizations in the articles. We're going to be ciphering the data. I mean, it's not all be there from day one, so bits and pieces will be going into the members area, but you will have the XG, which is one of the most important things. So, and that's for last season and this. So we'll be using that in the articles going forward. So the best data for fantasy fans on the planet. Boom! Have some of that. There you go. Caught me
For
tired.
sure,
Bush.
for sure. And you can, and the link is in the description below for 40% off. So do check it out.
Yeah.
So without further ado, we'll move on to today's first price, which Son Heung-min. We're all waiting for this. You were saying he should be a forward. I can confirm that he is a midfielder at 10 million. So that's the same as Saka, cheaper than Palmer, more expensive than Foden. So how does he sit to you in amongst those guys?
He sits in the wrong position, Tom. That's what he sits. He sits in the wrong bloody position on the pitch. He's playing as a forward. Surely Son was the one they could have changed. Oh dear. Okay, I'll let it go. I've got to come to terms with this kind of innate frustration. I think Son has to be a forward, but there he's not a forward, so that makes him more attractive, I guess. Um, I'm having seen the prices. I'm not as surprised as I would be if that had dropped earlier. If you'd had Haaland and Salah and then suddenly Son had come in at 10, I'd been, oh blimey neck, that's juicy. But him being cheaper than Saka and Palmer, it's interesting, isn't it? I kind of want Sonny. I want to see also who else Spain even doesn't play for Spain. Who else Spurs? Pardon me, Spurs get. Um, but yeah, 10 million. I think I can find a home. I guess they're looking at it from a points perspective. What did Son get last season? 17 goals, 10 assists. Pretty impressive. 213 points. So, and compare that to what was Saka. Saka was more than that, right? And I guess Palmer was the top scoring player in the game. So if you look at it from a pure points perspective, yeah, Saka was 226. He wasn't that much more. It was a very simply like 13 points difference. You can make the justification. But I think, to be honest, also Son kind of didn't, by his own high standards, with Kane gone, I don't know if I've got to check again and check the stats. I don't know that he'd have felt that was his best season. Um, he's better than the year before. He got 152 points, so I guess it was better than the year before. His top fantasy score ever is 258 points, from 21-22 with 23 goals and 10 assists. And actually 17 goals and 10 is very similar to his 2021 season. So I don't know. I just felt it wasn't his best season last year. I don't know. Maybe it was a whole Spurs being a bit sort of hit and miss and no Kane there. What do you think about it, Tom?
I think it's the penalties that has given him a little boost. I think because you got Foden at 9.5, who scored more points than him last year, who
Yeah.
scored more points than Saka last year as well. But I think they do take penalties seriously when they're pricing up these players, and it does make sense because we saw with Palmer last year he got 10 goals from penalties. So what's that? That's 50. That's 50 points without bonus. So it is massive. And yeah, I think it's a fair price, but I do think Foden coming in cheaper could provide better value. And then we've got Richarlison at 7 as well, Maddison at 7.5. So there's a little potential for saving there perhaps.
There's definitely different ways into that attack, right? And Kulusevski as well came in at 7 or 7.5. Check. He came in at
6.5,
sure,
I think.
Is it 6.5? 6.5. Yeah, you're right. I think Kulusevski's a bargain at that price. He is an actual winger. I like Simon plays fun. But yeah, that's I. So you think it's maybe too high or about right, and I think it's too low. Isn't that interesting?
Maybe I think Son is right, but I think maybe Foden should have been higher, but that's probably where I'm at. I think Saka and Son being the same is fine.
Yeah, no, exactly. But yeah, I guess that's the thing. Same as. I mean, Foden, Saka, Son, Palmer, all sort of within spitting distances, and Foden as well. I think that makes sense. The logic of making Foden the cheaper of those
is penalties.
I guess they're looking at rotation.
And penalties.
I guess they're looking at what's that?
And lack of penalties.
Yeah,
as
of
well,
course.
yeah.
I know. I keep saying you're on it. You're on it. That's why you're in charge. Pens, yeah, absolutely. I guess the pens is the difference. So, but if you've got Son, I reckon you can get Son, Saka, and Salah. I reckon, and Palmer. My midfield's definitely having that. So,
I mean, you're on this no Haaland strategy, so we'll do your first draft video as and when it launches, and that will be interesting. We'll have to see who you can actually fit in.
I can get them all in.
You've locked
the space for everyone. It's a broad church.
You've locked everyone in so far. But yeah, right. We'll move on to another price that we're very keen to see, and that is Ben White, the Arsenal right back. He's coming at 6.5 million. I think we sort of expected this. Obviously, a big price rise.
You called it, mate. You absolutely called it.
Yeah, I mean, we don't know Gabriel and Saliba yet. I think it's going to be 6 or 6.5. But yeah, it's expensive, but for the best defence in the league, it's probably worth it.
Yeah, I mean, as you say, best defence in the league. Also, White was getting forwards. Like you say, you called this totally, and I think early on we weren't looking at having premium defenders, and people were barely getting to 5 million in the early reveals. So White, what was that from last year? He started 5.5 last year, did he? Yeah, started 5.5.
He was more expensive last year than the other ones as well.
Yeah, and he ended up 6.1, 182 points, 5 assists, 4 goals scored, and he's got XA of 3.66. So he is expected to get assists as he does get forward. Obviously, you're getting 18 clean sheets. You're getting the Arsenal clean sheet machine. If you had question for you, Ben White, who you called, chapeau, versus Raya.
Yeah, that is a question. It's tough to answer without sort of doing the rest of the team, but I do think Raya will come into the conversation because if the defence is as good and it's essential to buy into it, then I think to save that million, especially if you've got Haaland and Salah, you're going to be looking around for downgrades. And
yeah,
I think Raya could be really good value. Another one to shout out is Timber because he's 5.5.
Timber. Sorry, I
done it again.
Can't resist. Anyway. I really can't.
But yeah, so he obviously got injured in game week 1 last year. But he did start that game, so he was obviously in the plans for Arteta. So if he becomes nailed, he's a no-brainer, isn't he? Cheaper than all the others.
The thing is, though, you just don't know. Like, to be fair, he did start, but he's not played, right? So, he's not played. So it's kind of like, what are you thinking? Like, where?
Yeah, I mean, we'll have to see. But if I said to you Gabriel and Saliba are 6. Are you going to pay for Ben White or not?
I'm not going to pay. I'm going to take the extra 500,000 for a
Yeah.
short start. You'd be mad to, and I mean, I get what you're saying. If you see him play the first couple of games and he's a solid starter, then yeah, that's going to be a way in. But it's a bit like the Martinez pick for United. You want to see him fit and playing first before you're going that way. But yeah, it's a good shout. I mean, it's a good shout. I think you're absolutely right. I think you could say you called it perfectly. I think Saliba and Gabriel will probably be both be 6. There's some sneaking suspicion that Gabriel could be cheaper, but
Are you taking them too if they are cheaper over Ben White then?
we're taking both.
No, as in, would you save the point 0.5 and get Saliba or Gabriel if they
If
are
I
6?
if I like. I mean, Gabriel got some goals as well last season. Obviously, it's close, isn't it? Because the points at the end of the season weren't that different. Except Saliba is obviously the better option, actually, from a point perspective. If Saliba and Gabriel are the same, you probably go and sit Saliba. If Gabriel's half, I mean, that will be I guess that's what's going to pose a problem. If it's White 6.5, Saliba 6, and Gabriel 5.5, that'd be really well priced because you're kind of forced to sort of make a decision, and that reflects their points scored last year. I think I'd probably still go White.
Cool. So Ben White 6.5. Let's move on to Brian Mbeumo, who has come in as a £7 million midfielder. So he is cheaper than Ivan Toney. He's more expensive than Visser. Obviously, he was a popular pick last season in game week 1 when Toney was absent, taking penalties, and he did score in game week 1 as well. But if they play 2 up front, him and Toney, if Toney obviously stays, I think he could be an out of position asset that people look at.
Our position being the point, being the key point. I'm surprised he's got. I'm surprised because they did see some positional changes. I'm surprised that Mbeumo's gone that way. Has not been moved up front because he was playing very much as a forward in my perspective. But there you go. Yeah, and Mbeumo's interesting. It all depends what happens to Toney, doesn't it? Really, and that's the thing. I think he's a decent player. I've enjoyed him in the past. Do you remember? It wasn't this season? It's last season when he basically. I think he hit the woodwork more
Yeah.
than anybody else. I think he had like 7 shots against woodwork or something crazy, and I owned him during that period. It was just like, no, not again, surely. But yeah, no, I think he's a decent player.
Last year, he seemed to find his finishing boots and really step up a level without Toney.
Yeah, and he's gone up from 6.5 to 7. You're saying so? Yeah, okay, that's interesting thing.
So if Toney's 7.5 and he does stay at Brentford, how do you see that sort of price comparison?
I think I'd probably, if I was going Brentford, I think I'd probably be more tempted by Toney. I just think because not that I don't like Mbeumo, I think Tony's just Tony's me on pens surely, and he's a finisher, and I still think I kind of think there's a fair chance he won't be at Brentford. So if he's there, I'd probably go Toney. Also because of the slots, because there's a lot of midfields I want, as you know.
Yeah.
I've already got 7 midfielders already sort of inked in. So whereas I think I could put Toney and alongside an Isaac and a Watkins up front.
Yeah, I mean,
So,
if you look at the players that are cheaper than Mbeumo, you've obviously got Nkunku, Garnacho as well. So, there's a lot of options there, and he's going to have to do well to get our attention, I think.
yeah, I think with Nkunku, I've decided where I am. I'm just waiting game week 1 to see. I mean, I think I am quite intrigued by Nkunku, but I think apart from Palmer, Chelsea assets are let's get the first 1 or 2 game weeks out of the way, and then sort of pile in. I think.
You wait until he scores in pre-season, you'll be all over it.
Well, it's just because they're playing City first. Is that right? Or have I made that
Yeah,
up?
that is
Made that
true.
up?
Yeah, it is Man
So
City.
I don't necessarily want to, and because the difference between going on Nkunku versus missing a Haaland, whatever. I mean, I don't think it's going to be a particularly easy game for City either. But I do think, you can go down to Nkunku, right? It's going to be easy. It's an easier transition. Going up to Haaland, as the debate I've kind of had in the streams earlier and had a few times, that's the only thing that's holding me off Haaland. The only thing is like, can I get back to him if I need to? Because no one's going to start the season with like 3 or 4 million extra in their bank account. I mean, unless they're you could do it, but like that's just not how people play this game, right? You kind of squeeze as much in as you can. So, yeah, But so Nkunku will be maybe Nkunku's part of the way to get back to Haaland if I need to in game weeks 2 and 3. That might be part of the route to recruit, as Mark used to call it. Yeah.
Yeah, already planning our transfers. The game hasn't even
Yeah,
launched yet.
I've not even picked a side. I'm already planning. I'm already booking in transfers for game weeks 2 and 3. But I haven't even picked a side yet. That's great.
We've also had today a player that's close to your heart, Chris, Dominic
Yeah.
Calvert-Lewin, Everton star man. He down at 6 million, which obviously based off last season, it's probably fair. But if he can get back to the form he showed in seasons gone by, that could be a bargain.
The problem is with Everton forwards. I mean, he ended the season at 5.5. He was actually 6 last year. Yeah. He's kind of injured a lot, so that's and B Everton just aren't the team that's going to create loads of chances for a centre forward. Like most of I think our top scorer was actually I think Doucouré, or maybe it was joint with Doucouré and you know Calvert-Lewin got 7 goals the season before. He got 2 goals. Fair enough. He didn't play so much and 5 goals, and then when he was getting 16s and 13s, that's going back a few years, and we're just not creating as many chances. We're getting some, we're buying a few wingers at the moment. We're looking at them, so maybe that changes things. But we're just not creating enough chances, and he's also missed a lot of chances. To be honest, I mean his XG was like 13. So actually, that's a weird thing. Actually, I've correct myself because I know that Sean Dyche's teams were sort of XG monsters comparably to the size of the team and players in it, but not scoring them. So yeah, he had XG of 13 and he scored 7 goals or 12.86 rather. So that's I guess that says it all. The other thing to know about Calvert-Lewin is I'd say there's a better than evens chance he won't be there at the start of the season, which may be a good reason to look at him. I think West Ham are looking at him. I think Newcastle were looking at him, but it looked like they've sort of called on it for the moment. I think if United were looking at him, so I think, and we probably do need to get, we probably need to get some money back still. If we're keeping Branthwaite, we've already sold Anana. I mean, maybe we don't now. I don't know, but like I think, I'd like to keep him, but I don't. Yeah, I'm not. I wouldn't be tempted to go there. If I go Everton, I go defence. Although, as you pointed out earlier, they priced them quite expensive comparatively, certainly last year. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if he went to West Ham and started every week, he could be a good price.
Yeah.
With Jared Bowen feeding him, could be decent.
Yeah,
But
Will
obviously,
Prowse knocking the
yeah,
free kicks in and
yeah,
stuff. I think
definitely.
he's very good in the air, but he's just quite isolated for Everton a lot of the time. So yeah.
Yeah, so not as enthusiastic as I was hoping for, but anyway.
I do like Dover. I've got a lot of soft spot for him. I like, he's done well for us at different times, and everyone in Everton pulls together because, we've had it tough. But yeah, I wouldn't pick him as a fantasy asset. No.
No, that's fair enough. I will just say I think if he got back to his best at that price compared to what Tony is, Solanke is, Mateta is, almost 2 million more, then you've got a little bit of potential there. But there's a lot of what ifs in that statement.
Yeah, Beto's the price we're waiting for, right?
Well, we haven't had Beto's price, but we have had some more today. So I'll bring the full list that we've had onto the screen.
Nice.
I'll read these out for the podcast listeners. As mentioned, we had Son at 10 million midfielder. We've had Mbeumo as a 7 million midfielder. Mitoma, 6.5 million midfielder. Hwang, 6.5 million midfielder. We've had Calvert-Lewin at 6 million forward. Awonyi from Forest, 6 million forward. Kobe Mainu, midfielder, 5.5. Daniel Munoz, the Palace defender, at 5. Kurt Zouma, 4.5. Hermansen, the Leicester goalkeeper, at 4.5. And Alex McCarthy, the Southampton goalkeeper, at 4.5. And of course Ben White as well at 6.5. So I just pick out a couple of those to get your thoughts on. Kobe Mainu, 5.5. You think?
Yeah, that leapt out at me actually.
Yeah.
He is, of course, he played in the double pivot for England alongside Rice, and theoretically he's more of a defensive midfielder or sort of a balanced midfielder at least. But actually,
Scored
he
in the
does
FA
like
Cup final.
forward. Yeah, he does like to get forward, and he's got some skills in him. He's quite. He was one of the players, along with the likes of Palmer and maybe Bellingham at times, which had a certain joie de vie to their play, and he was trying these little flicks and step overs and drag backs and stuff. And I can see him. I can see him getting goals for United. So that could be at that price. If you're not tempted by Rashford or Garnacho, I don't think that compared to a lot of the other defensive midfielders, you're probably not going to get a Rice, although Rice does score some goals as well. But I that could tempt me. He's surely a nailed starter now. He only started about half the games last year, or 24 actually. He scored 3 goals, got an assist. Okay, but I could see him. Yeah, I think he's going to be a. I think this could be a year he really comes to the fore for United. I think he's one of the sort of players you're going to want to build around. So yeah,
Yeah, definitely one to
it could
watch
be
there.
tempting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, Daniel Munoz was someone who a few people owned at the end of last season during Palace's double game weeks. Obviously, the right wing back gets forward quite a bit. He's 5 million. Obviously, you've got Gahey at 4.5 there, so they've priced the fullbacks a little bit higher than the centre backs for Palace. But yeah, they were the form team at the end of last season, so there could be a little bit of interest there.
Yeah, no, and they finished pretty well. Obviously they've already lost one of their sort of talisman, but they were getting some clean sheets towards the end of the thing. Munoz, I think he didn't get a goal, but got 4 assists. Yeah, and he was kind of playing. He got a couple of double-digit hauls with bonus points and stuff towards the end. He got 2 assists actually against United, didn't he? And then he got one against Villa. Yeah, I mean, interesting player. 5 clean sheets. If it's just, why would Palace change? If Palace turn out the same ways lined up as did before, I think Palace could be interesting. Their fixtures are good. Um, they're near the top of the third behind Liverpool and Fulham, the top of the fixture list. We've got Brentford away, West Ham at home, Chelsea away, Leicester at home, Man United at home, and Everton away. Now, on the fixture terms, that's quite blue. I think Chelsea away is difficult. I think United at home is probably difficult. Everton away, can't believe it. I must be mistaken. I have to go and check that out. But well, we do beat Palace at Goodison. I think that's
Oh,
kind
you've
of
got a great home
there.
record, to be fair.
Yeah.
Last year.
Well, Everton.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. No, we and it's the last year at Goodison, so Fortress Goodison. It's going to be people will be. So last year, obstructive views and horrible pies. No offense to the Goodson catering staff. But yeah, I think Palace is a good shout. The problem there is, yeah, Munoz. I guess you should say it's a wing back 5. Whether you're going to go for 5, he kind of felt like more of a pick towards the end of the season rather than a starting pick. But yeah, they're like their first few are decent, so maybe, yeah, maybe.
And then yeah, just to finish, we had a couple of goalkeepers from Leicester and Southampton, 4.5 million. There does seem to be like a clear divide now. You've got the 4.5 keepers, the 5 million keepers, and then the couple of premium ones as well. So how do you sort of see that? Would you be willing to pay zero point 0.5 more for a Pickford or a Onana, or are you
Yeah,
going to
I
go
think you
bargain
start.
basement and get a promoted keeper?
I think that's where you look at the rotation, right? And it looks where you're getting with your points when you're with your budget once you've kind of got the mainstays in. Um, I would typically go for two 4.5s or a 5 and a. I try and not spend more than 9 million if I can on goalkeepers. I never really bought into going after kind of the Allisons or whatever that were or Edisons that were so big because they don't. Also, a lot of these teams don't get as many shot stopping points. So even if they get clean sheets, they're not facing as many shots. It's kind of a little bit the same with Raya. Clean sheets, yeah, but you're not going to get a lot of maybe as many shot sort of save points, whereas Pickford gets a lot of those. Um, so and again with these players, you're maybe not going to get all the clean sheets, but you maybe getting some decent save points. And Southampton again, they're fourth in the ticker for the first 6. Away to Newcastle, very tough first game. Wouldn't necessarily play the keeper for that, but home to Forest, away to Brentford, home to United, home to Ipswich, away to Bournemouth. If you had a rotation, you could probably find a couple of fixtures you trust them with for that. I mean, I've got no idea what Southampton's going to line up like now. I think when they were last in the Premier League, I think you would back them for some clean sheets. I don't know what I don't know what the new look's going to look like really. So we need to see some of the pre-season. But yeah, what about you? What's your goalkeeping strategy? I can't think I want a 5. I think I'm going to want one of the.
I agree. I think Pickford at 5 stands out to me. Obviously, the top scoring keeper last year. Yeah, I like Pickford. I also think the Chelsea goalkeeper, whoever it is, if he comes in at 5, could be good as well because after Man City, we've got some really, really nice fixtures. And I do think we'll be a lot more defensively solid next season with the more structured manager who's got a whole pre-season to get his philosophy in. But yeah, And then Raya, as you mentioned earlier, if I'm tight for budget and I need Arsenal defence, he's going to be the cheapest way in. So there's options all around the price levels, which is obviously what we want.
Yeah. No, I think exactly that. I think there's a lot of options. I think there's a lot of options everywhere, and I generally, obviously, you can check out until before the game goes live. You can check out our points, and even after, if you like. We've got for free members. There's a link on the site. You can maybe put it. We'll maybe put it in the description. But you can check out all the player prices being seen so far, and make a copy of that doc and do your own sorting and everything. And I think the thing that's come out to me so far in this game, apart from the initial shock horror of Haaland and maybe a higher price than expected for Palmer, that massive leap, is that actually there's a lot of options. What they've done is pushed a few players that they want not everyone to own, but then below that, there's so many players that are you can get in. And I think I'm really hoping what that does is encourage the shopping around, and I think it will. I think we've even in our conversations we've got very different thoughts about obviously pro Haaland against Haaland is one thing, pro Salah against Salah is the second one, and then beyond that it's like are you going to go sort of big at the back? You're going to Arsenal, you're going to go Odegaard versus Saka, and I think there's just a lot of choices. There's a lot of very juicy looking players there that I'm going to want. I mean that's my problem as we've discussed. I've got probably about 10 midfielders that I want, so unless I can change the formation, which is that one of the new changes? You can go for a 10-man midfield. It's not, is it?
I don't think so. But yeah, I agree. I think people who don't have Haaland are gonna, if you put Haaland to Isak, for example, you free up 6.5 million. You can go Odegaard to Saka. You can get Palmer, and you can get Salah, and your team just looks on the whole so much better. Whereas there'll be people who, like myself at the minute, are saying, no, I need Haaland because it's the sensible thing to start with him. I can move off. And you've got that Ipswich game in game week 2 to captain. So I love the chat. I love the debate. And there's going to be a hell of a lot more of that on this channel for the next month or so before kickoff.
Always going to be a lot, isn't there? Yeah, I think it's really healthy for the game. I do. I'm loving it. There's going to be a lot of back and forth. You're going to need to check your data, which you've got even more data now. Yeah, I think it will be it's shaping up for a good season. Final thing I'll say, because I know I'm going over your time limit, but the reaction of the Twitterverse, which is usually quite hostile, stroke mixed, has been largely positive to everything. They liked the Haaland premiumness, and they've been excited about a lot of the other prices. Obviously, there's always going to be so and so should be there, or so and so should be up, or I'm going to say, we should be, forwards. I'm going to say like, midfield should be forwards or vice versa. But generally, people are pretty happy about it, and obviously we've got more prices to come in, but I think that's most of the main ones done. Is there anybody I mean, I guess the Arsenal kind of defense is a key one. Maybe some of the Man City defense, like a Liverpool goalkeeper and stuff. Is anybody that's not in yet that you're really waiting for?
To be honest, I don't think so. Maybe Robertson, if he's cheaper than
Yeah.
Trent, sort of. But yeah, we've had lots of prices, lots of reaction. Thank you for all the likes and comments. Do subscribe to the channel and the podcast feed. I should just say, if you're listening to this as a podcast, you will now hear a chat with Will and James from StatsBomb describing how our new data in a members area and members articles will benefit you this season in FPL. But for now, that's all. Thank you very much, Chris.
Thank you.
And it's goodbye from me.